Welcome back to Murder with the Missus. I'm Darren.
And I'm Amy. And today we're going to tell you about Krash Richerson and Stephan Adams.
Don't forget to smash that like button. Check out the description for the links of all of our podcast platforms, Cash App, and Buy Me a Coffee. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends. Welcome back, everybody.
Heyo.
Yesterday was our son's 25th birthday, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So what we got today?
Well, first we have a warning.
Okay.
Because we have a new cat that we took in.
Yeah.
And you will hear him yelling because he wants to record as well. So that's just Percy.
Yeah, he's at the door right now. So
like, what are y'all doing?
I can literally hear him.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of missing people in Oklahoma. There is a severe lack of coverage and a lot of missing person cases across the world. But another issue that we see here in Oklahoma is the high number of missing Indigenous people. We will be talking about 2 unsolved cases from Oklahoma today involving some of those missing Indigenous people. So let's get into it. First, we'll talk about 51-year-old Kristyn Sue Richerson, who went missing from Muskogee, Oklahoma in 2018. She loved softball as a kid, and as an adult, she loved the band Hailstorm.
Nice.
I know, right? Now, she had a neighbor named Carl, and Carl's house unfortunately caught on fire, so he had moved in with Kristyn. And I really want to spend the rest of her case calling her by her nickname Krash because I like it. Her mom has said in interviews that she's not quite sure how she got that nickname, but some reports say that she was good at playing the drums, or some say that, it could have been because of her love for rock music. Now, Memorial Day weekend here in Oklahoma means a lot of things. Of utmost importance is honoring those who served our country and are no longer with us. It is a long weekend because most people get off work. But there's also a lot of lake activity, and specific to Oklahoma would be Rocklahoma. So for those of you who don't know or didn't hear us talk about it in the Noah Presgrove case, it is a 3-day rock festival in a field in Pryor, Oklahoma. It's the Rockin' Red Dirt Ranch Festival grounds. There are 3 stages that they set up, and there's over 70 bands that perform throughout the weekend, like Five Finger Death Punch, Shinedown, Marilyn Manson, 3 Days Grace, Alice Cooper, Flyleaf, Of Mice and Men, Saliva. I mean, we could go on and on. Like I said, there's 70. And those were just some of the bands from this year's lineup. It is billed as the world's largest rock festival.
And you get to camp.
Yes, a lot of people camp at the campsite there. Now, at first, it was a very different experience when this first started going on. But according to the website now, it says it's put in a lot of things like more porta potties and showering facilities. So you have like VIP tent areas now. It's getting pretty awesome. But back in May of 2018, the main thing that Krash cared about at Rocklahoma was seeing Hailstorm perform. She was so excited. And Carl was going to go with her. They already had their tickets and they had their campsite booked. She was actually planning on sleeping in a sleeping bag in her truck because she had a camper shell. So it's like a built-in little private area. Around midnight on Friday, May 25th, she was seen packing up the truck and getting ready for the weekend. After Rocklahoma, Krash's sister Robin and the family were not able to get a hold of her. Robin had talked to Carl, and he said that everything was fine. He had talked to her, saying that she had taken off with some people that she had met at Rocklahoma, but she had been calling him, checking in. But he wouldn't give Robin the phone number to call her, saying that it was someone else's phone that she was calling from, so he wasn't going to give that number out.
Well, that's red flag number 2.
That's 2 red flags, right?
Yeah.
First, she doesn't come back from Rocklahoma, and now she's not contacting anybody but Carl. Okay, there's more red flags to come.
Okay, Carl.
Okay, Carl. Now, she was described as being outspoken, honest, and confident. She would give you the shirt off her back. But she was also impulsive, though, which some could say, well, there you go. She just took off on an impulse. She's probably out partying or something. But Robin wouldn't agree with that. So 5 days after Rocklahoma, she was calling around to anyone and everyone to see if they had heard from Krash. They were making regular trips to Krash's house to see if she showed up, but she hadn't shown up yet. What they did find out was that Carl and their other roommate, Cody, were driving around in Krash's truck like it was their own. Now, why do I say like it was their own? It's probably because they wrote on the side of the truck in black Sharpie, lawn service, call Cody, and a phone number.
What the hell?
Yes.
They made it their company truck.
They did. They took that truck over. Now, why would somebody do that? Right? Originally, if you remember, Carl had said she left with someone she met at Rocklahoma. Now, on Friday, or maybe it was on Saturday, he couldn't quite remember when she left Rocklahoma. But the problem with that is no one else could put her at Rocklahoma. Nobody saw her there. No one else remembered seeing her there anyway. So Carl's story would then change to him saying that someone picked her up at the house in a bronze Ford Taurus before they went to Rocklahoma. So now she hasn't even gone to Rocklahoma, according to Carl. That's a big change. He said that she had gone to Colorado with a woman that she had met who was from Veneta. Now, Robin immediately knew that that wasn't true. Krash had packed up for Rocklahoma. She was stoked to go. She wouldn't just abandon that plan and run off to Colorado with someone she had just met. So Robin did report her missing on July 6th, and police did serve search warrants and interviewed people. More red flags stuck out, showing that she didn't leave by choice or with no intentions of coming back. At her house, they found her grandmother's ashes, her dogs, her cell phone, and her debit cards. Some of her stuff was gone, but it was later found out that the roommates had been selling it off. Carl also had used her Oklahoma Access card after she went missing. Now that's her EBT card. Some call it SNAP benefits or food stamps for those who don't know.
So did they check her cell phone?
They did. So they checked the location data and her phone never left the house. So they know she didn't go to Rocklahoma now. They know for sure.
Wow.
And they are pretty sure she didn't go to Colorado because why not take your phone or your debit cards or your dogs? Another sad thing to mention by her family was Krash's dogs. Now, she wouldn't have just left the 3 dogs there. She would have actually made arrangements for them, especially her pit bull Buddy. But then all of a sudden, after Krash disappeared, Buddy disappeared. And Carl said that he ran away on the 4th of July, but Buddy was elderly. He didn't get around very well, so he would literally just go outside, do his business, and was right back in the house. He was too old and had no interest in yard time. Now, Robin then says that she found something in a trash bag on the side of the road while she was out looking one day. And I'll spare you the details on what was inside the bag, but she believes that what was in that bag belonged to Buddy. So she reported it to the police, but she doesn't know what, if anything, was ever done about it. So.
Yeah, it sounds bad anyway.
It was very bad.
Is this all Muskogee?
Yes.
Investigators doing this stuff?
Yes, this is all Muskogee County.
Wow.
Now, while Carl and Cody were high up on the suspicious shit list, in all the searches and interviews and things, police never had enough to arrest them in connection with Krash's disappearance. They did find a stolen truck on the property when they were serving that search warrant, so the 2 men did get in trouble for that. But this case is wide open. Krash is... Do you hear that cat?
Yeah.
Now, Krash did weigh about 200 pounds at the time of her disappearance. She has brown hair and hazel eyes. She has a tattoo of Stevie Nicks on her right calf with a scar on the back of her right leg. So if you have any information, you can call the U.S. Department of Indian Affairs at 833-560-2065 or the Muskogee Police at 918-683-8000. And that's all we have on Krash.
Okay.
The next missing person that we're going to talk about has had...
They'll probably have better chance at calling Indian Affairs.
Yeah, if you'll think back there and was like, no, this is Muskogee.
Yeah, as soon as I was like, oh, this is Muskogee, well, yeah, call Indian Affairs.
We've actually had another person. It was a murder case, what they believe is a murder case, but they said no foul play in Muskogee that we've covered to the teacher.
Yeah. The one that they found on
somebody else's property.
Yeah.
Hanging on the fence.
Yep.
Yes.
She's a school teacher. That right there was actually, a couple years ago.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So if you haven't heard that one, go back and listen to that one too, and you'll see why they don't put a lot of faith in that police department.
Oh, well, I mean, even that, and then you got the Mogi one, where Muskogee released a guy from Taft.
Yeah.
He got released from Taft, or from, what was that prison called in Taft?
Just done.
Mm-hmm. He got released from there, got sent to Muskogee, and because of COVID, then they went ahead and released him, and when they shouldn't have.
Pending charges.
And then he ended up killing a whole family plus some friends.
Yeah. His wife, her kids, and her kids' friends. Yeah. Yep. That's another one we've done. Jesse McFadden.
Yeah,
I haven't heard that one.
That's
Go back and listen to that.
And they actually passed a law because of that one.
Yep.
So, but anyway, that's another one to listen to, because that one there really got me upset about
riled.
It. Yeah, I was real pissed about that one.
Well, for good reason.
But
so the next missing person that we're going to talk about, like I said, it had more coverage than Krash's case has had, and this is 26-year-old Stephan Adams. He was born August 4th of 1978 to Carl and Denny. Apparently, Stephan was quite a character. He was always trying to lighten the mood if it was called for, and he wouldn't shy away from the weirdness to do whatever that took to lighten the mood. He liked playing basketball, hunting, and fishing. He also wanted to be successful in life. Now, his parents would end up getting a divorce, but reportedly everyone handled it pretty well eventually.
Well, that's hard on the whole family.
It is. It affects the whole family. But if it's necessary, I can understand it. And I hope that makes sense, because it's better to have two happy parents who are separated than it is to have, a place where somebody's unhappy or unsafe.
Yeah. Or if it's an abusive family.
Exactly. So if that's what
situation, then yeah, definitely.
100%. Do it to it.
Yep.
Now, Stephan would graduate from high school and planned on going to college in Kansas, but that changed when he met Alicia Sizemore. Now, Alicia would get pregnant, so they moved in together and ended up getting married. They had their daughter, Cheyenne, but they fought a lot. They didn't get along very well, and they would end up divorcing. So that turned into a whole other issue, because rumor has it that Alicia wanted sole custody. There would be 2 times the accusations were made by her and her family against Stephan. They were saying that he was inappropriate with their daughter. And I saw 2 separate cases that were filed, and then both were dismissed when nothing could be proven.
Yeah, and and I hate it when people use that as a tactic, to get custody, and that was, the case here, it's just...
Right.
They was just using that against each other.
Widely believed that this is the case here. But in general, false accusations can be devastating. That is forever on their record. So anytime there's a background check ran for jobs or all kinds of things, that's going to pop up.
Yeah.
And while I know the accusers couldn't care less, it's very problematic for anyone falsely accused, and it's disrespectful to actual victims of abuse. But anyways, let me put my soapbox up and we'll get back to the case. Because of the accusations, Stephan was getting supervised visitation with Cheyenne. He didn't want to keep doing that, so they were going to have a hearing on December 21st of 2004, and it is believed that at this hearing, since the charges were unfounded and dismissed, that the supervision requirement would possibly be removed so he could go to having regular unsupervised visitation with Cheyenne. Now, Stephan at this time was living in an apartment with his cousin in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, so that he was close to the NSU campus where he was going to school and working on a degree in engineering. He was also working a part-time job at El Chico's in Muskogee. Now, if you're not local and don't know about the white dip at El Chico's in Muskogee, bro, you were like brought chips and salsa out to your table like any other Mexican restaurant and every other El Chico's here. But in Muskogee's location, they also brought out white dip.
And no, it wasn't queso.
It was not cheese at all,
No.
but it was some of the best dip. So now that there's no more El Chico's there, there's no more white dip, but I'm just saying. And I do remember going to this restaurant back around this time and seeing his missing poster hanging in the entrance. So it always made me think of him. But before we get into the meat of the case, I think we're going to take a minute to hear from today's sponsor.
Yep, so just hang in there with us and we'll be right back. If you're in a heated argument with your dryer, don't worry. You'll both cool down eventually. Or maybe you just need a washer and dryer. Don't get agitated. Take a load off.
Get your laundry set from My Laundry Solutions and let them iron out your problems. If you live in an apartment, get your set from them. They service them, and they have locations in Texas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. The most recent area is Lubbock, Texas, around the Tech Terrace area, with more locations coming soon.
So give them a call today, 800-535-4411.
Or go online to mylaundrysolutions.com.
And let them wash your troubles away. Let them wash your troubles away.
Right away.
Yeah, go check them out. They're really good people, really good company to work with.
Yes, we like them. Now, Stephan had fought through all the allegations, was possibly getting that supervision lifted, and he had a new girlfriend, Brianna. So let's get into December 13th of 2004. And you know I like a timeline. Stephan is in final exams week for the end of the semester, so he told his cousin that morning that he had a test. Then he was planning on going to see his mom in Weber's Falls before his shift at El Chico started at 5 p.m. He left the apartment sometime between 8 and 9 a.m. At 10:45, he was finished with his test and he left campus. At 11:07, Brianna calls him on the cell phone to see how the test went. She said that he sounded like his normal self, he was in a good mood, and he told her that the test went okay. So all was good.
So was he on his way to see his mom?
He says he was. He was on his way to Weber's Falls, but it was going to be after he gave a man a ride to Keys.
What man?
Yeah. What man? She said she heard a muffled voice in the background, so he must have already had that man with him at the time. Right after that, at around 11:30, the cousin calls Stephan on his cell phone, and it rings twice, then goes to voicemail. After this, all calls to his cell phone just go straight to voicemail. It was between 11:30 and noon that he is seen at a convenience store in Cookson, which is south of Keys. He's standing outside, drinking a pop, but he appears agitated, and most importantly, he was alone. He was out there for a few minutes before getting in his truck and leaving, heading northbound on Highway 82. This would be how you would get to Keys. So if he was going to Keys, he was going the right direction. There were also reports of a man being seen roaming around the apartment complex that morning, where Stephan lived with his cousin. And then there's reports that there was a man of a similar description at the Dollar General there in Tahlequah, but they never said if they believed that this was the same person or not. So keep that in mind. Now, he doesn't show up to his mom's house, and Weber's Falls is actually in the opposite direction of the way he was driving. He doesn't show up for his shift at El Chico's. He doesn't go back to his apartment that night. And when he doesn't show up for another test the next morning, his family files a missing person report with the Tahlequah police.
So they couldn't track the phone back to, them either, could they?
Well, it's 2004, so they didn't have like GPS on phones like they do now. They could try triangulation off of cell towers, but I don't see anything reporting that they did that. And that also means that they couldn't track his truck.
Well, and to get over to Weber's Falls and everything, you can go through Keys.
Right, but he never went to Weber's Falls.
I know. But what I'm saying is, use like, this is the opposite direction.
From Cookson, yeah.
Yeah.
So when he left the convenience store in Cookson, he went towards Keys instead of Weber's Falls.
Yeah, because you got Keys, and then you go through Tenkiller, and then you can go Braggs and up there, and then go to Weber's Falls.
Darren knows all these places. I'm at the maps. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never seen any of them.
Been all over the place.
You have.
Especially in Oklahoma.
Yes. And back then, they also didn't have cameras everywhere like they do now. So they're really not able to track him other than people seeing him. So they go to the apartment and all of his stuff is still there, including his 2 inhalers. Now, Stephan had asthma, so he usually didn't go too far without taking those with him. So I found it odd that he left them at home when he planned on being out all day that day. So I thought that was weird too. Now, they talked to the school and classmates and teachers, and they all verified that he was definitely there on the 13th, and he definitely took that test. So they searched everywhere. They interviewed all the people, and they couldn't find him or his white GMC truck. The police did talk to Alicia, the ex-wife, but she said she didn't know anything. They even gave her a polygraph test, but she failed that test. So, put into that what you want, because you know how we feel. They do talk to people in the area and find out that, remember, there was that man that was seen at Dollar General that morning, and that Dollar General is just a few blocks from Stephan's apartment. He was there probably as early as 7:50, that's 50, that morning, and was just sitting in his truck. Now, this was a faded black or charcoal colored 2000 Ford Ranger with a silver toolbox in the back. This was a Caucasian male between 40 to 50 years old. He was around 5 foot 11 inches tall and between 180 to 200 pounds. He had either brown or salt and pepper hair based on different descriptions of him, because he was wearing a stocking cap so they could only see so much sticking out of the bottom. But he did get out of the truck and walk around a couple of times, so they were able to say that he was wearing a tan Carhartt jacket and flannel shirt as well.
So how long was he there?
He didn't leave that Dollar General until around 11 a.m., so he was literally there for about 3 hours in his truck, and he'd every once in a while get out and walk around, but he never went in the store, and he only talked to somebody if they asked him, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah.
And one person did ask him, basically, why are you hanging out? Do you need help?
Yeah.
The man said that he was a construction worker. He was waiting to be picked up for a job in Keys. So that's why the cops were like, tell me more about the Dollar General man. They even put out a sketch of him. But after that, there was nothing. No one knew anything more about that man. When Stephan didn't come home or make any contact for the holidays, because remember, this is beginning of December or mid-December, you've got Christmas and then New Year's. So when he didn't come home and he didn't call them, the police said they started looking at this as a homicide case. Now in January, the family started being contacted by a person that was threatening them to stop the investigation. But nothing ever came of that either. They never knew who that was or why they would do it. They were monitoring Stephan's bank account, social security number, things like that, and there was no activity after the day he went missing. In 2006, they searched portions of Lake Tenkiller, like what Darren was talking about was in the area, but they didn't find anything helpful there either. The family hired a private investigator who said that they strongly believed that there was foul play involved. So,
And there could be. And I mean, they're looking at portions of Tenkiller. Man, Tenkiller is huge.
Yeah, they couldn't search it all.
I mean, there's a lot of woods.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of hills. And there's a lot of water.
Yes.
I mean, it's just from the Keys all the way to Fin and Feather. I mean, basically to Tenkiller Dam. I mean, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. So they were only able to search certain places throughout there. Now, his dad, Carl, petitioned for a grand jury, and he got it in September of 2011. That's just 6 years later, almost 6 years. We've talked about one of the reasons that people do this. It may not end in an indictment, but sometimes they need the grand jury to force people to talk under oath in front of the court. And also, sometimes, if the police won't give you documents or information, you can get that when this case goes in front of the grand jury, because you're in there listening. You can hear the cops' investigation, what they've discovered, where they're looking, where they've been, all the things. And this is how the family got more information. It came out that there were some people interviewed that said that the man that Stephan probably picked up to take to Keys was a man named Ronnie Meachling, and that Ronnie was to bring Stephan and his truck to multiple individuals that were waiting for him. It was believed that Ronnie had written Brianna threatening letters from jail. Now, I looked up him too to see if there was any cases for his name, and I couldn't find any. And yes, I tried different variations of the spellings and possible nicknames. This isn't my first time. But there was nothing. So if he was writing her letters from jail, I don't know what he was in jail for, because I don't see any charges. Some people also said that Stephan had been beaten to death by people who had connections with his ex-wife and her family.
No.
That thought never crossed my mind either. The Adams family also found out that there was a reported sighting of Stephan's truck on the side of the road the day after the disappearance by the Illinois River. They said it was locked, but looked like it had been ransacked. But by the time authorities got there to take a look, the truck was gone. Stephan's textbooks had also been sold back to the school for cash after he disappeared. So the family got quite a bit of information at this grand jury that they had never been told by the police. Now, the grand jury's final report was released in January of 2012, and it says that they believe that those responsible for his disappearance actually testified in court in front of them, and they needed to be investigated or prosecuted. They believe that some witnesses that took the stand gave false statements. They believe that Stephan was the victim of a homicide, and they believe that his body was somewhere in eastern Oklahoma. But this case still remains open, and no arrests have been made.
And after all that.
So
his truck was spotted by the Illinois River?
Yes.
So, that's gore.
On the side of the road. Somebody saw it, and I guess they looked in it and saw that it had been ransacked.
Yeah.
So they called the cops, and by the time the cops got there, it was gone.
Huh. That's where we go trout fishing.
Trout fishing to the trout stream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there hasn't been any evidence found that would point to anybody that they could probably get, actual charges filed on. On the 20-year mark in 2024, Carl told News on 6, "You never want to outlive your children. You never get over it. And you just kind of get numb. And you kind of learn to live with it. But you never really get over something like that." And I imagine that's about right, Carl. It's so sad. We talk about it all the time, how heartbreaking it has to be. That forever unsettled feeling that something's missing that you'll never get back. I can't. Now, also in 2004, some deer hunters near Lake Tenkiller had found human remains. There were several bones scattered over a 200-yard area, but after testing, obviously, they found out that they didn't belong to Stephan. And there's been a lot of theories and speculation, as always in these cases. It was reported that it was one person who spotted Stephan at that convenience store that day, because that's the last sighting of him. But only one person saw him.
In Cookson.
Right. The one in Cookson where he's drinking a pop, looked agitated. He was alone. I don't know where the man had gone. And he was headed north, right, when he left. Now follow me here. The person who reported this was Alicia's uncle's sister-in-law. Now, some people point out that this is not a blood relation and was so far down the line that there's a good chance they didn't even know each other. Not enough to lie to the police in a missing persons investigation. Some say that that's what they want you to think. She is the last known person to see him alive, and it was just briefly at a convenience store. Her sole involvement in this case was giving that statement, and belief is that she was sending the police in the wrong direction. And then there was the two strange men. Remember, were the two strange men? Or was it the same strange man in two places that morning?
Yeah.
Speculation has been that these were two different men, scoping out Stephan's movements and location, keeping tabs on where he was, when he was leaving the apartment, when he left the school, things like that. So maybe there were more than two, but these were the only two that were spotted as being out of place. Either way, the theory points to this being a group activity.
Yeah, I mean, and if you believe that someone is, hurting a family member and the police don't do anything about it, would they take matters into their own hands?
Right. That's what people believe. They reported this. Well, would you be able to find a group of family members or friends that were willing to help you too? Like you'd have to convince them to commit a crime with you. You can, because somebody's got to give police false leads and other people have to cover for your activities that day or actually participate and help you. Yeah. And I don't know, timing is crucial. They were 8 days away from a hearing that could have lifted supervised visitation. So is it so hard to believe that they thought that the system had failed them and that they were actually putting that child into the hands of her abuser with no one there to protect her? How far would you go? So that's why a lot of people look at it that way. On the other hand, maybe there wasn't foul play at all. Some people say that the roads out there in Keys are something else.
Oh, yeah, they're windy.
Yeah, they say they're windy with big ravines that if you're not used to the area and you don't make the turn when you're supposed to, you're going to go right off in it.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of speculation that, they're looking for a white truck, but if it's upside down, it would be black. So they're not looking for what they need to be looking for. You know what I mean? But they said they searched in the areas, so I'm sure they would maybe try to follow a path that he could have taken. I don't know.
Yeah, it just all depends on like how big of an area they searched.
Right. And they're saying that maybe he did end up taking the Dollar General dude to where he needed to go, which I don't know why he would need to have somebody take him when he was driving around in a Ranger. So he obviously had his own vehicle anyways. But then maybe he was on his way back and went off the road somewhere, not, familiar with the area.
Yeah, and if he went off in the road in his truck, how did his books get sold back at the school?
Right. That's something else that's critical because his books were sold back to the school after he went missing.
Yeah.
So I initially thought, okay, maybe.
And they don't have like camera footage of like who sold the books back?
No.
Kind of, a little suspect.
Yeah. And I originally thought, it was right before Christmas break. He was taking his final test. If it was a class that he wouldn't be going back to next semester, he would have taken the books back, right?
Yeah.
You sell them back, you get the cash, you buy more Christmas presents. But the reports all say that the grand jury believed the books were stolen out of Stephen's truck when it was on the side of the road and then sold back to the school. So, timing. And that would mean that he that would mean that he couldn't have accidentally driven off the road in his truck and died that way since they never found his truck. But, if he drove off the truck or drove the truck off the road and died that way, why was it on the side of the road without him in it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't add up. Where was he? Anyways, that's where we are in this case. Stephen was last seen wearing a black t-shirt, jeans, and was carrying a dark-colored book bag. His white GMC truck had chrome bed rails, but the image that we have on the thumbnail for this is a white truck that is similar. Stephen's did not have the taillight covers that you can see in the picture. And it had a license plate of SCQ714. So if you have any information, please contact the Tahlequah Police at 918-456-8801. And do you have any final thoughts on these two cases?
No, not really.
Suspicious.
It is.
Both
very,
of them.
very suspicious.
So if you like our content, please always like, share, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. It's free for you, and it helps us out.
Yeah, and as always, don't forget to tell your friends because you know what? Your friends deserve to see us too.
I love when you say that. They deserve this.
So, you guys have a great day. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.